Dans la nuit tragique du 6 octobre 1996, des rebelles ont attaqué notre hôpital à Lemera, en République démocratique du Congo. Plus de 30 personnes tuées, les patients abattus dans leur lit, à bout portant, le personnel ne pouvant pas fuir, tués de sang-froid. Je ne pouvais pas imaginer que ce n'était que le début. Obligés de quitter Lemera, en 1999, nous avons créé l'hôpital de Panzi à Bukavu, où je travaille aujourd'hui comme gynécologue obstétricien.
Obstetrician gynecologist today. The first patient admitted was a rape victim who had been shot in her genitals. The macabre violence knew no limit. A colleague in tears implored, "Please, send us an ambulance fast. Please, hurry." So we sent an ambulance, as we normally do. 2 hours later, the ambulance returned. Inside was a little girl, about 18 months old. She was bleeding profusely and was immediately taken into the operating room. When I arrived, all the nurses were sobbing. The baby's bladder, genitals and rectum were severely injured by the penetration of an adult. We prayed in silence. My God, tell us what we are seeing isn't true. Tell us it's a bad dream. Tell us when we wake up, everything will be all right. But it was not a bad dream. It was the reality. It has become our new reality in the DRC. When another baby arrived, I realized that the problem could not be solved in the operating room, but that we had to combat the root causes of these atrocities. I decided to travel to the village of Kavumu to talk to the men. Why don't you protect your babies, your daughters, your wives? And where are the authorities in this village? To my surprise, the villagers knew the suspect. Everyone was afraid of him, since he was a member of the provincial parliament and enjoyed absolute power over the population. For several months, his militia had been terrorizing the whole village. It had instilled fear by killing a human rights defender who had had the courage to report the facts. The deputy got away with no consequences. His parliamentary immunity enabled him to abuse with impunity. The 2 babies were followed by several dozens of other raped children. When the 48th victim arrived, we were desperate. With other human rights defenders, we went to a military court. At last, the rapes were prosecuted and judged as crimes against humanity. The rapes of babies in Kavumu stopped, and so did the calls to Panzi Hospital. But these babies' psychological, sexual, and reproductive health is severely impaired. What happened in Kavumu and what is still going on in many other places and villages in Congo, such as the rapes and massacres in Beni and in Kasai, was made possible by the absence of the rule of law, the collapse of traditional values, and the reign of impunity, particularly for those in power. Rape, massacres, torture,
l'insécurité diffuse,
widespread insecurity, and a flagrant lack of education create a spiral of unprecedented violence.
bilan humain de ces chaos
The human
pervers
cost of this perverted, organized chaos has been hundreds of thousands
femmes violées,
of women raped,
4 millions
over 4 million
personnes
people
déplacées
displaced within the country,
et la perte
and the loss
de 6 millions.
of 6 million human lives.
Imaginez
Imagine
toute la
the
de tout
equivalent of the entire population of Denmark decimated.
les gardiens de la paix, les experts des Nations Unies.
United Nations peacekeepers and experts have not been spared either. Several of them have been killed on duty.
La mission des Nations Unies
Today, the United Nations mission is still in the DRC to prevent the situation from degenerating further. We are grateful to them. However,
leurs efforts
despite their efforts, this human tragedy
sans que tous les
will
responsables
continue if those responsible are not prosecuted.
Seule la lutte contre
Only the fight against impunity can break the spiral of violence.
tous
We all have the power to change the course of history when the beliefs we are fighting for
sont justes.
are right.
Vos Majestés,
Your Majesties,
Altesses royales,
Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies,
distingués membres du comité Nobel,
distinguished members of the Nobel Committee,
Madame,
dear Madam Nadia Mourad,
Messieurs, amis de la paix,
ladies and gentlemen, friends of peace.
c'est au nom du peuple congolais
It is in the name of the Congolese people that I accept the Nobel Peace Prize. It is
C'est à toutes les victimes de
to all
violences
victims of
sexuelles
sexual violence across the world that I dedicate this prize. It is with humility that I come before you
portant haut
to raise the voice of the victims of sexual violence in armed conflicts and the hopes of my compatriots. I take this opportunity to thank everyone who, over the years, has supported our battle.
en particulier
I am thinking in particular of the organizations and institutions of friendly countries, my colleagues, my family,
ma chère épouse
and my dear wife, Madeleine.
Je m'appelle Dennis
My
Mukwege.
name is Dennis
Je
Mukwege.
viens d'un pays
I come from
le plus riche de la planète.
one of the richest countries on the planet. Yet, the people of my country are among the poorest of the world.
La réalité troublante
The troubling reality is that the abundance of our natural resources, gold, coltan, cobalt, and other
minéraux stratégiques
strategic minerals, is the root cause of war, extreme violence, and abject poverty that we see in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
de belles voitures.
We love nice cars, jewelry, and gadgets.
J'ai moi-même un smartphone.
I have a smartphone myself.
Des objets
These items contain minerals found in our country,
souvent extraits dans
often mined in inhuman conditions by young children,
qui sont victimes d'intimidation
victims
et de
of
violences
intimidation
sexuelles.
and sexual violence.
En conduisant votre voiture,
When you drive your electric car,
en utilisant votre
when you use your
smartphone,
smartphone,
en admirant vos bijoux,
or admire your jewelry, take a minute to reflect on the human cost of manufacturing these objects.
en tant que consommateur,
As consumers,
le moins que l'on puisse faire,
let us at least
En tant que consommateurs, le
As
moins qu'on puisse
consumers,
faire,
let us at least insist that these products are manufactured with respect for human dignity. Turning a blind eye to this tragedy is being complicit. It's not just perpetrators of violence who are responsible for the crimes. It is also those who choose to look the other way. My country is being systematically looted with the complicity of people claiming to be our leaders, looted for their power, their wealth, and their glory, looted at the expense of millions of innocent men, women, and children abandoned in extreme poverty, while the profits from our minerals end up in the pockets of a predatory oligarchy. For 20 years now, day after day, at Panzi Hospital, I have seen the consequences of the country's gross management. Babies, girls, young women, mothers, grandmothers, and also men and boys cruelly raped, often publicly and collectively by inserting burning plastic or sharp objects in their genitals. I'll spare you the details. The Congolese people have been humiliated, abused, and massacred for more than 2 decades in plain sight of the international community. Today, with access to the most powerful communication technology ever, no one can say, "I didn't know." With this Nobel Peace Prize, I call on the world to be a witness, and I urge you to join us in order to put an end to this suffering that shames our common humanity. The people of my country desperately need peace. But how to build peace on mass graves? How to build peace without truth nor reconciliation? How to build peace without justice nor reparation? As I speak to you, a report is gathering mold in an office drawer in New York. It was drafted following a professional investigation, very strict investigation into war crimes and human rights violations perpetrated in the Congo. This investigation explicitly names the victims, the places, and the dates, but leaves the perpetrators nameless. This mapping report by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights describes no fewer than 617 war crimes and crimes against humanity, and perhaps even crimes of genocide. What is the world waiting for before taking this into account? There is no lasting peace without justice. Yet, justice is not negotiable. Let us have the courage to take a critical and impartial look at what has been going on for too long in the Great Lakes region. Let us have the courage to reveal the names of the perpetrators of the crimes against humanity, simply to prevent them from continuing to plague the region. Let us have the courage to recognize our past mistakes. Let us have the courage to tell the truth, to remember, and to commemorate. Dear Congolese compatriots, let us have the courage to take our destiny in our own hands. Let us build peace.
Construisons la paix.
Let us build peace,
Construisons l'avenir de notre pays.
build our country's future, and together build a better future for Africa.
Personne
No one else
à notre
will do
place.
it for us.
Mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and
amis
gentlemen,
de la paix,
friends of peace,
les tableaux
the
que je vous ai
picture
brossés
I have painted for
offrent
you
une réalité
depicts a dark
Mais
reality.
permettez-moi de vous raconter
But let
l'histoire
me
de
tell
Sarah.
you Sarah's
Sarah nous a
story.
été
Sarah was
transférée à
referred
l'hôpital de
to the
Panzi
hospital
dans
in
un état
Panzi
critique.
in critical condition.
Son village avait été attaqué
An
par un groupe
An
armé
armed group had
avait
attacked her
massacré toute sa
village,
famille,
massacred her whole
la
family,
laissant
and
seule.
had left her alone.
Prise en otage,
Sarah
elle a
was
été emmenée en forêt,
taken to the forest as a hostage
attachée à un arbre.
and tied to a tree. Naked,
Tous les jours,
Sarah
Sarah subissait
was
des viols collectifs
gang raped every day
jusqu'à ce qu'elle perde
until she
connaissance.
lost consciousness.
Le but de ces viols,
The aim of these
utilisés comme
rapes,
arme de
used
guerre,
as a weapon of
étant
war,
de détruire,
is
bien
to
sûr,
destroy,
Sarah, mais également
of
sa
course,
famille,
Sarah, but also
sa
her
communauté.
family
Bref,
and
tout
her
simplement,
community. In
détruire
short,
les
to
tissus
destroy
sociaux.
the social fabric.
À son arrivée à l'hôpital,
When she arrived at the hospital,
Sarah ne pouvait
Sarah
ni
could not
marcher,
walk
ni même
or even
tenir debout.
stand on her
Elle
feet.
ne pouvait pas
She could
retenir
not control
ni
her
ses urines,
bladder
ni ses selles.
nor her bowels.
À cause de la gravité de ses
Because of the seriousness of her genital, urinary, and digestive injuries coupled with an infection, no one could imagine her one day being able to get back on her feet again. Yet, with each passing day, the desire to continue to live sparkled in Sarah's eyes. Every passing day, it was she who encouraged the medical staff not to lose hope. Sarah struggled in order to survive every day. Today, Sarah is a beautiful, smiling, strong, and charming woman. Sarah has committed herself to helping people who have survived a history like hers. Sarah received $50 US, a grant our Dorcas Transit House gives to women who are ready to rebuild their lives socio-economically. Today, Sarah runs her small business. She has bought a plot of land. The Panzi Foundation has helped her with sheeting to make a roof. She has built a little house. She is independent and very proud to be independent. Her experience shows that no matter how difficult and hopeless the situation seems, with determination, there is always hope at the end of the tunnel. If a woman like Sarah does not give up, who are we to do so? This is Sarah's story, of course. Sarah is Congolese, but there are Sarahs in the Central African Republic, Colombia, Bosnia, Myanmar, Iraq, and many other conflict-driven countries in the world. At Panzi, our holistic care program, which includes medical, psychological, socio-economic, and legal support, shows that even if the road to recovery is long and difficult, victims have the potential to turn their suffering into power. They can become agents of positive change in society. This is the case already at City of Joy, our rehabilitation center in Bukavu, where women receive support to regain control over their destiny. However, they cannot succeed on their own, and our role is to listen to them. As today, we listen to Madame Nadia Mourad. Dear Nadia, your courage, your audacity, your ability to give us hope are a source of inspiration for the entire world and for me personally. The Nobel Peace Prize awarded to us today will be of value only if it leads to concrete change in the lives of victims of sexual violence all over the world and the restoration of peace in our countries. So, what can we do? Or what can you do? First, it is incumbent upon all of us to act in this direction. Taking action is a choice. It is a choice whether or not we stop violence against women, whether or not we create a positive masculinity which promotes gender equality in times of peace and in times of war. Taking action is a choice whether or not to support a woman, whether or not to protect her, whether or not to defend her rights, whether or not to fight on her side in countries ravaged by conflict. It is a choice whether or not to build peace in countries in conflict. Taking action means saying no to indifference. If there is a war to be waged, it is the war against the indifference which is eating away at our societies today. Second, we are all indebted to these women and their loved ones, and we must take all ownership over this fight, including states, by ceasing to welcome leaders who have tolerated, or worse, used sexual violence to take power. States must stop welcoming them by rolling out the red carpet and instead draw a red line against the use of rape as a weapon of war.
Une ligne rouge qui serait synonyme des sanctions économiques, politiques et des poursuites judiciaires.
And this red line would consist of imposing economic and political sanctions on these leaders and taking them to court. Doing the right thing is not hard. It is a matter of political will. Third, we must acknowledge the suffering of the survivors of all acts of violence against women in armed conflicts and support their holistic recovery process. I insist on reparations. The measures that give survivors compensation and satisfaction and enable them to start a new life. It is a human right. I call on states to support the initiative to create a global fund for reparation for victims of sexual violence in armed conflicts. Fourth, on behalf of all widows, all the widowers and orphans of the massacres committed in DRC and all Congolese in love with peace, I call on the international community to finally consider the mapping project report and its recommendations. May justice prevail. This would allow the Congolese people to weep for their loved ones, to mourn their dead, to forgive their torturers, to overcome their suffering, and finally to project themselves into a serene future. Finally, after 20 years of bloodshed, rape, and massive population displacements, the Congolese people are desperately awaiting implementation of the responsibility to protect the civilian population when their government cannot or does not want to do so. The people are waiting to explore the path to a lasting peace. And to achieve peace, there has to be adherence to the principle of free, transparent, credible, and peaceful elections.
Au travail, peuple congolais.
People of the Congo, let us go to work. Let's build a state at the heart of Africa where the government serves its people, a state under the rule of law, capable of bringing lasting and harmonious development not just in the DRC, but of the whole of Africa, where all political, economic, and social actions will be based on a people-centered approach to restore human dignity to all citizens. Your Majesties, distinguished members of the Nobel Committee, ladies and gentlemen, friends of peace, the challenge is clear. It is within our reach. For all Saras, for all women, for all men and children of Congo, I call upon you urgently not only to award this Nobel Peace Prize to my country's people, but to stand up and together say loudly, the violence in the DRC, it's enough. Enough is enough. Peace now. Thank you.